I'm going to start the meeting. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our meeting with our chapter. We have a guest from different groups like Orlando and our member or speaker from Chicago. We are very excited to have Wes Douglas tonight. Wes is a career art director and graphic designer from Chicago. He belongs to the USK Chicago group, and he has been an instructor for their seminars. He also was a sketch correspondent for the International Symposium in 2017. So he will share some of those interesting things with us later. Now, Wes works at, he teaches urban sketching at the DuPage Art League in the Chicago area. And so he has a lot of experience. You have seen his work, but tonight he will show us more about his tools, his sketchbooks, and his inspiration. So thank you very much for joining us, Wes.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That was a nice introduction, and I'm super happy to be here. I'm thankful to Lisa and Chris and Jamie and Hannah, especially, for inviting me here today. I really am honored anytime I can get in front of a new group of people and talk about urban sketching. It's a sunny day for me, so I appreciate the opportunity to be with your group, and we're gonna have some fun today. I hope that certainly after the recent hurricane, not the one that's on its way, that after Ian, you are all safe and healthy, and that everybody is dry, certainly. You know, when you watch the news from Chicago, where I am, it makes it seem like, you know, Florida just broke off and floated into the Atlantic because of the hurricane. So hopefully that's not the case. I gathered by the fact that there's so many people here tonight that that's not the case. So I'm very happy about that. So welcome tonight. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. And I told the admins about this, but I actually have a Jacksonville connection. In the year 2000, I turned 40. And a good friend of mine who I was going on vacation with, his family, we were going to Florida, and he asked me, he says, you know, when we go into Florida, we're going to do some golfing. Do you golf? And I said, no, not at all. He goes, you don't like golfing, or you just don't know how? I said, more like I just don't know how. I've never learned. And he goes, oh, no problem. We can fix that, you know? So he grabbed a couple of his clubs, and we went to one of those driving ranges, and he just had me hit balls until my arms fell off. And then he says, okay, do this. And he would adjust my swing until the point where I was somewhat hitting the ball, and it was getting more than a foot off the ground. So that was good. And then we went on vacation. Where we went on vacation was Amelia Island. And the very first day that we were there, he takes me, he says, we have a tea time. It's 7:30 in the morning. And it's going to be at the Amelia, I think it's called the Amelia River Golf Club. I don't know. All I knew was it was really a nice place. And I'm thinking to myself, why am I here right now? Because I have no experience golfing or anything. And so we ended up muddling through that thing, you know, all the first time jitters about, you know, worrying about the golfers that are coming up behind you and worrying about making marks in the grass. All those things went rushing through my head. Normally when I go to a golf club, I just like to ride around in the golf cart and look at the pretty leaves and the trees and, you know, the nice grass that they have there, you know, but I didn't realize there was actually a sport where people enjoyed this, you know, and I thought, well, what have I got to lose? So I did that, and we had a good time. I also, we went, whenever we go on vacation, my wife and I and my son, we go to a zoo or an aquarium, wherever we're at, whatever is available. And we went to the Jacksonville Zoo, and we had a good time. I'm told that they've much improved that zoo, so I think I'm due back sometime soon so that I can go see how they've improved the zoo. And lastly, my connection to Jacksonville was when my son was visiting colleges. SCAD in Savannah was one of his top choices. So we had to do a college tour, as you will do. And I found it so wonderful that as a career artist and illustrator, I was thinking to myself, why didn't I go to this place? It's really nice. This little cute little historical city, and you start learning about the movies that were filmed there and all the historical buildings and how they repurposed them for the campus. It's really, really a beautiful place. And it was very hot there when we went, but I guess that's part of what you sign up for when you go to Savannah. But beautiful, beautiful place. Anyways, enough about me. Oh, wait, this whole thing is about me, isn't it? Let's continue on then. So yes, I am Wes Douglas. I live in the suburbs of Chicago. I have a wife, Robin, and a son, Spencer, and I have a dog, Nero, who you will meet ultimately through some of my sketchbooks, I'm afraid. Let's see, I was born in March, which makes me a Pisces. I love walks on the beach with a glass of wine. Did I check all the boxes? Swipe right if you like what you heard. And if not, wait, actually, since you're on Zoom, don't swipe right. I don't want you to lose your connections or anything like that. So I've been a career art director, and I spent a lot of time creating concept illustrations. And I would do drawings that were this is kind of the bane of urban sketching, is to draw things from imagination. But when you're drawing concepts, you are working on drawings of things that don't yet exist. So to give you an idea of what that might look like, this is a drawing that I did of a building or a room, a space in a building that needed to be repurposed for a meeting space. So one of them was to create this cute little porch area. And then the same space, I decided that it should have whiteboards so everybody could doodle all over it and scribble out their ideas. And those are the kinds of things that I would continue to draw for people, even this kind of meeting space. Am I going too fast for everybody? I just had coffee, so probably need to slow it down a bit. We're all good?
All good.
Okay, good. So anyways, it's somewhat of an example of the kind of concept drawings that I would do. I also did speaker sketches, or what's more commonly and generically called graphic recording. These are notes that you write and draw in a meeting. Drawing is shorthand for writing lots of words. And I would go to corporate meetings and draw these different kinds of notes that were a combination of handwritten notes, kind of like this. Handwritten notes and also some drawings just to kind of show what was talked about. This happens to be my notes for today's meeting. So for those of you who just read ahead, you probably can leave now if you want, because you read the whole presentation. But no, I'm not. I really hope you stay, because I have some wonderful sketchbooks and things like that to show you. So I feel like I've been drawing since I was a little kid. You've always heard people say that I've been drawing since I was little. I really had, and I always drew in kind of an urban sketching way, but I never had a name to attach to it. Not until later, when I discovered Gabby's book. And at this point, I'm going to switch my camera so that you can see my drawing board. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, yes. Good. I hope that you like roller coaster rides, because I have one camera that does both things and you're about to get flipped. So hang on. All right, how's that? that look good? You probably need something to look at. So how about we start with this right here?
Yes.
There. Okay. So as Hannah already told you, in 2017, I was asked to be one of the sketch correspondents for the International Symposium that came to Chicago. It came to Chicago. It was remarkable because it had only been the second time since the Urban Sketchers Symposium had come to the United States. The first time was Portland, where Gabby, or Seattle, where Gabby's from. That area over there was the first time they have one. And then the second time was Chicago, and it happened to be the Urban Sketchers 10th anniversary. So it was a lot of really significant things were happening at the time. I did a lot of studying of the previous year's sketch correspondence. And since it was in Manchester, England, I did a lot of looking at the work of Liz Ackerley. She was the one who helped get Urban Sketchers primed and ready to come to England, to come to Manchester, and to really be excited about the kinds of scenes that they would see when they got there. So I started out by trying to get everybody excited about coming to Chicago. And so these were some of the sketches that I did in my earlier posts to say, here's a little piece of architecture you may see while you're here. I don't have Frank Lloyd Wright in here, but that was one of the highlights for many of the people, many of the visitors to our city. This happens to be the exact firehouse that the TV show Chicago Fire is based out of, and it's right in the just on the outskirts of Chicago. But I thought since it was a national TV show, everybody might recognize this. And a completely different firehouse was Firehouse One, which is this tiny little firehouse that probably had horses and a water wagon built into it. This is right at the base of the water tower place and the water right near the water tower pump. The reason I included this is because my brother is a fireman in Chicago. And this was the firehouse that he was stationed at for a long time. And we actually tried to visit him, and we walk in as they're busy making dinner. So here's these big burly guys, and they're chopping up carrots and cucumbers, and doing all the meal prep for their wonderful meals. Because firemen are probably known to be really good chefs and cook some great foods, including chilies. Anyways, we had a good time meeting with the firemen. Unfortunately, my brother wasn't there. We just decided to pop in and see if he was around, but still enjoyed the firehouse. This was the original Chicago Library, but it's now called the Chicago Cultural Center, and it's a wonderfully large building. This is significant to me because in 2013, when I first joined Urban Sketchers Chicago, the first time that I came out to meet with the group, it was at this building right here. And it was kind of a funny feel. I don't know if any of you have had this feeling when you are used to interacting with people on Facebook. And then all of a sudden, you have the opportunity to meet these people, these virtual avatars in person. And so I walk into this building, and the one person that I recognized from her profile photo was Alex Sonis. And she was there when I walked in, and I was like, okay, I'm in the right place. And she says, yeah, we're spread out all over the place. And this building is about the size of a football field. And so we had an interesting time. I'm trying to find everybody, but it's not like we were all clustered in a group of people. We were all spread out, and everybody was in little corners, little nooks and crannies, and they were all just kind of sketching quietly to themselves. And at first I thought, well, why would I come all the way out here so that I could be quiet and off in the corner sketching. I thought we were going to be all in one room together and talking and chatting, maybe sharing some drinks, and sketching and laughing. It was not like that at all for my first time. But as we got more familiar with each other, then I found out there's this wonderful thing that we do at the end of every sketch crawl. It's called a throwdown or a share out, where everybody puts their books down. You probably have experienced this yourself. Everybody puts their books down and then they go and share their books and enjoy each other's company, and even ask each other about tips and tricks that they use to get their sketches. That was something I was not used to when I expected, artists were going to be kind of secretive about the kind of tools that they use, but that was not the case with this group here. Okay, so now let's move forward to the International Symposium. I was one of the volunteers from Chicago, and we had to have a large team of volunteers. One of the things that I was responsible for was publicity for the international event, which meant that I had to get on radio shows and talk about the event and let listeners know about what was going on. I also got to appear on morning television. And here's a view of me inside the TV studio. This is WGN, which you may or may not have heard of, but it's an independent news station. They have a wonderfully lighthearted, humorous presentation with their news, and they also give serious news. So I was invited to come and talk about urban sketching symposium at this radio station. This TV station actually happens to be the home of Bozo, which is why this picture was started. This was me waiting to get invited into the studio where I actually met with the news anchors. Once we were there, this is what I got to sketch. Now, I did not do this by myself. I got to bring somebody from Urban Sketchers with me. And the person that they assigned to me was Liz Steele, who is like one of the founding members of Urban Sketchers. She's one of the original people that Gabby invited to be part of his sketch groups that were started on Flickr. And then eventually it was Twitter, and then finally a Facebook group and an Instagram group. But this is us at the end of the show where we're sharing our sketches. And we have Dan Ponce, Robin Baumgarten, and Morgan Kolkmeyer. She's the weather girl, and these two are the main anchors. One of the most interesting questions that Dan Ponce asked us when he was interviewing us on camera is, he goes, "I'll bet you that being a sketch artist in the room would be like the ultimate in urban sketching, right?" And Liz and I both looked at each other and we're like, "Oh yeah, we never thought about that. That would be awesome." And we're like, "Well, we're in the news studio. Do you guys have any things that you want us to go draw?" And they're like, they laughed, and of course they said no. But it's an interesting industry to be able to get inside of a courtroom and be able to sketch. So this was the sketch that I did, and they had a camera hovering over me while I drew this out, which was kind of cool. I thought I'd be a lot more nervous about it, but I was not. At the symposium, I was one of 3 sketch correspondents. These are my partners in crime. We have Vincent from I think he's from France, and then we have Belisa, who's from Barcelona, if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, these two were assigned to me, and I was the local expert of Chicago. So I helped them to learn the lay of the land and to show them where to go. And then the 3 of us divvied up responsibilities for the sketch correspondence. there is, I'll tell you a little bit about sketch corresponding. First of all, it is, there were a total of 36 workshops per day, and they had workshops for 3 days in a row. Between the three of us, we were to cover all 36 workshops. So you can imagine we got the whole list out and we tried to figure out, okay, who's going to cover the north side of town, who's going to cover the west side of town, and who's covering the south side of town. And we kind of divvied up the workshops that way. If you're doing the math, you have 36 workshops. You have 18 in the morning and 18 at night, which is incredibly taxing. But I think that made about nine each or something like that. Now, of course, my lack of math skills are coming right through, but there was a whole lot of them. I remember I could only spend about a half hour for each workshop. In fact, so much so I showed people, I said, if you ever want to be a sketch correspondent, which I highly recommend, is an awesome way to be a part of a symposium without having to sign up for workshops. You don't have to pay anything other than your cost to get to the country where the symposium is being held, but you can certainly get in a lot of workshops with some very famous urban sketchers. So this is my graphic recording of the things that you need to know if you're going to be a sketch correspondent. And one of the things, because of the distance that I had to travel, I adopted this little scooter here. Now with today's electric scooters, I probably would have opted for that instead, but this was all I had back in 2017, and it got me around a lot quicker than walking fast or running, So this was basically my getup while I was sketching the symposium. There's a treasured moment where I got to meet the man himself, the legend Gabby, and he was giving a presentation to the audience before the symposium kicked off, and of course I was capturing that through sketches. Wonderful man. I really enjoyed how quiet and soft-spoken he was, and he was a lot of fun to be around. And then of course Liz and I, after we were done at WGN, we got to pose outside of Bozo, but we also got to meet one of the artists who worked at the TV station, Nishanta Fletcher. She was she heard that we were there, and she's like, "Oh, I heard you guys were here." So she hustled downstairs in order to meet with us, and then we all posed together. She does a lot of graphics and illustrations to help with the different news programs. All right, so there's that group again, and here we are just kind of chatting it up after the morning show. It was I was wonderfully energized after coming out of this TV studio. I'd never been in a TV studio before, but it was certainly a lot of fun. And surprisingly, Liz Steele, as an architect, she says to me, I designed a lot of these TV studios, but I've never actually been in one. So she had a wonderful time just being part of the group.
Or see how those numbers start breaking.
Was somebody asking a question? Okay. All right. So I'll flip through these a little bit faster, but this is the type of sketching that I was doing during the symposium. This is all of us Chicago volunteers getting goodie bags packed together. And then here we are. If you came to Chicago for the symposium, this is us getting all the goodie bags loaded up in the bleachers of the Roosevelt University's gymnasium. So you're probably familiar with this bright green color that was on the wall. This is a new facility, but we had a lot of good times there, but a lot of work went into it. I understand Merrick might be on this call. So this was Merrick and Ray who were setting up the big banners. They were working with this big structure to hook up this banner that was probably about, I don't know, 25, 30 feet long. And so they had worked on setting this thing up. So it was kind of fun. Just being able to see all the behind the scenes going on. And of course, sometimes, you know, in this middle of summer, July, when this was happening, you have to get outside, and everybody who visited says, gotta draw the bean. This is part of it. You know, I had this, I have this weird artist attitude about the bean, or cloud gate as it's officially called. I always said, nah, I don't think I'm going to draw it, because everybody who comes to this town photographs it, draws it, takes pictures in front of it. So I decided I'm not doing this. So I drew just a piece of it, just to say that I did it, and then I moved on. At the symposium was the sponsors tables, which was just a massive crowd. Hopefully, some of you who visited got to get through this as well. Lots of pens and artist supplies that were represented there, and just a mass of people all shopping around. It looked like a Chris Kindle market or something like that, or whatever, flea market, you know, with all the different people. This is the point where I got starstruck. All of a sudden, I started to see artists that I had been following for years, and I wasn't sure how to approach them. You know how that you see a celebrity of sorts, and suddenly you can't remember a thing about them, or what to say, or how to sound like you're not being uncool. Well, this was Lynn Chapman from England, and I was such a fan of hers. And I'm sitting there sketching like maybe 5 feet away from her, and I'm not saying anything. And then finally, I worked up the courage to say hi. And I don't know what my problem was, because I had just as much right to be there as she did. But it was just wonderful to finally open my mouth and say hi. So I broke the ice with her, and then turns out that every time I was doing a sketch, she was in it somehow, you know. So, and I'm not a stalker, so you needn't worry about that. It was just something I had a lot of fun with. Part of urban sketching, the presentation was the Irish dancers and the Irish community that's in Chicago. So we put on all these dancers, and drawing moving people does not look as clean and tight as when they're sitting still and not moving. So this is my version of like, how fast can I move my pen while these girls are doing the Irish dancing? And you could see the drawings get rougher and rougher and rougher. And some of you probably experienced this when Chris had you drawing 15-minute poses, and then 5-minute poses, and 30-second poses, and things like that. So this was a lot like that. You could see how very rough it gets, but it's almost Picasso-like, because it's just like, I'm just trying to capture the mood, the feeling, and and just keep flipping the page and move your pen as fast as possible. So there was a lot of that. Amber was the president of Urban Sketchers at the time. She gave a presentation, and there's the sketch that I actually showed for Gabby, which is a lot of fun. And you also get a little bit of how he talks about how he started urban sketching. And this was his favorite line. He says, I found the start group button, and I couldn't let go of the button. So all of a sudden he just kept, and he says, I'm supposed to be watching my kids, and here I am just clicking. And it was just a rabbit hole that he got stuck in. Occasionally I'd catch people just in candid moments. You can see that sketching people in an urban setting requires you to have a lot of patience, and to also be able to be prepared for a lot of failure, a lot of missed opportunities, because people are there and then they're not there, or they get up and they move. I talk about that with my students all the time. Sorry, I'm going faster this now because it's the essence of the workshops is what I was trying to capture in each time. I figured one of the last things I wanted to do was to try and identify where the sketch was done. So I photocopied a bunch of these little logos in the corner so that I was like, okay, well, at least my watermark is already established. Now I just worry on the sketch. Here's Paul Heaston, another one of my heroes, who I got to meet and have dinner with along with Gabby. And so we had a good time. So I think I'm probably, oh, there you go. Thank yous. This is my view from the very top bleacher looking down over the masses of the group of people. And Amber, she's telling everybody, be sure to thank the people in the red shirts. So I made sure that I had my red pen so I could dot the crowd with the red shirts, because that was the idea. Lapin, I got to meet him and tag along on his workshop as we got to sketch Sue, which was the dinosaur bones that were very unique to Chicago and also unique to museums. And he wanted to catch this because he knew that Sue, this dinosaur, was going to be disappearing within the next couple of years. So he wanted to make sure that we all caught it before that happened. So we all got to draw a lot of versions of Sue. I was caught in a little bit of a quandary because I was like, I'm trying to capture the workshop, but I also wanted to capture Sue. So instead of doing one drawing, I did a bunch. I kept moving around and getting a bunch of different drawings. So that's kind of what this looks like. And then I believe you had Mike Dykabara on one of your guest speaker appearances. This was during his workshop, and I got to meet Mike, and we hit it off pretty well. But this was when he had everybody buy a hot dog from this hot dog stand back here. And then they put that on the wall here and drew the hot dog. And I often ask Mike, and he's often asked, how come you draw your food? Doesn't it get cold by the time you eat it? And he goes, I ordered two. I eat one and then I get to draw the other. And if the other one is still edible, by the time I'm done, I'll eat that too. So he tells me it doesn't do well for his diet, but at least he certainly enjoys it and he gets a good sketch out of it as well. I got to meet Virginia Hine doing her watercolor class. I thought it was so fun because here we are in Chicago and she's standing here in bare feet in the grass, painting just like she would at home, and all of her students were doing the same thing. Sherry Blaukauf, I hope I'm saying that right. She got to do a similar type of presentation as Jamie did the other day, where she talked about how to draw trees in the city, and it was kind of fun to hang out and watch her explain about the different shapes of trees and the way the branches flow and all the stuff that you've already heard Jamie talk about. So it's a lot of fun. Jason Dawes, I think. I did this sketch for him and I showed it to him, and how people normally, if you show them a photo, they immediately look at something they don't like about themselves on the photo. You don't think that that's going to happen when you show somebody a sketch that you drew of them. But when I showed this to Jason, the first thing he looked at was like, oh man, I need to shave. I thought that was so funny. I was like, it's just a light gray. It's not bad. It's just a 5 o'clock shadow. But he's like, yeah, my girlfriend's going to say I have to shave. So by showing him this sketch, I revealed that observation to him. And this is him again. And of course, you could see I decided not to use the gray around his chin so that he would be happier with the sketch. This is Ronaldo Multi. He was doing a sketch where we were all trying to learn how to draw moving water at the Buckingham Fountain. And the funny thing about this drawing here is these two guys right here. These are guys who were not part of the class. They look like rough dudes, and they just kind of walked up and they started staring at everybody who was working on drawings of Buckingham Fountain. And we were all kind of like, what's going to happen here? We weren't sure if these guys were going to, cause trouble or not. It turns out that they had a genuine appreciation for artistic talent. And they were watching this and they thought it was the coolest thing that we were all drawing fountain, using watercolors, pen and ink, colored pencils, whatever everybody had drawn. This is Ronaldo right here. And he was leading the class. And, it turns out we had a great time. By the time these guys got ready to leave, and I'm sitting behind most of the class, these guys come swinging by my chair and they saw what I was drawing. And they kind of just nodded their head in approval and they moved on like, that's cool. It was the coolest moment. And that's one of those things that you really enjoy when you're urban sketching and you draw people and you get to have that kind of acknowledgement. I know that there is some great stories on the Facebook group of Elise, who gets to draw people in real life, and the wonderful conversations that she gets to have with them. Okay, so we're going to move on then. Let's see. More sketchbooks. All right, here's when I get to visit Daytona Beach or Ormond Beach, I have to fly through Charlotte. And this is one of those trips where we were delayed. And I love capturing people in the airports because you get that moment where they are, what they get that into what's called the victim mode, and they just go, why me? Why does this always happen to me? And to me, that is the most wonderful body language to try and capture when you're sketching people. I love it when soldier comes home and there's a family there and big hugs, and those are happy moments are also very fun. But there's something cool about people just going, oh, I hate this. Every time I come to the airport, I get stuck or I get delayed or something like that, So we had extra time to kill, so why not sketch them? I use a lot of pen and ink. I should probably talk about that a little bit. Now that I've shown you plenty of my sketches. First of all, when I'm out sketching, you have to bring your pencil bag. And I don't particularly like bunnies, but this is one that I had, and I'm frugal enough that I think, well, okay, at least it holds all of my pens and my pencils. I teach an urban sketching class, as Hannah already told you. When I start out every one of my classes, the first thing I say two things. The first thing is, welcome to my book club. And everybody kind of laughs. So like, yeah, okay, book club. And I go, no, think about this. Okay, in a book club, you all read the same book and you get together and you talk about what you read in that book. The book is full of a story and you all talk about what you learned from that story. I said, and of course you might drink some wine and eat some crumpets, things like that. I said, our book club usually comes with blank pages. So the stories that we're going to be looking at, or we're going to be talking about, we create those stories. Every one of these drawings that we do is our story. These are our chapters, And so that's why I enjoy urban sketching, is because we don't really know what the next chapter is going to be like. Okay, so what do I actually bring? So the other thing, now I get to my second point that I always tell my students. The other thing is, what you will need for this class is something to draw with, something to draw on, and something to sit on. Those are the three things that you need. And how they interpret that is up to them. If that means you want to draw with watercolor, or you want to draw with pen and ink, or you want to draw with pencil, that's all good with me. And it's all good with urban sketching because we embrace each other's individual style. When you go through I bring way too much stuff. This is too much stuff. I mean, I have aqua brushes and I have all kinds of pens. I'm kind of a pen hoarder. It's not because I can't decide on which pen I want to use. It's mostly because I'm afraid of getting stuck someplace and my pen dries out or it doesn't work anymore, So I use these Pilot razor points. I've used Papermate ink joys. Those are fun. These are all gel pens, and I use my ever trusty. Hopefully you can see this. Uniball Vision is, in fact, this one is so well loved. If you could see it up close, you would see it's out of ink. And I'm still squeaking out the last couple of drops with this pen, and I don't ever throw it out. And then this is probably my workhorse right here, the Sharpie Ultra Fine Point. Oh, let's go like that. Sharpie Ultra Fine Point. That one is probably the most useful pen of anything, because then I don't have to worry about if it's not going to work on a certain piece of paper. So I do bring a pencil with me, but the pencil I bring will probably surprise you. I bring one of these guys with me. Or I'm going to bring one of my mechanical pencils with this really thick pencil lead. The reason I do that is because whenever I start out a sketch, see if I can mess this up. Let me find a blank page here. Whenever I start out a sketch, I always talk about something I'll show you a little bit more detail later, but I always block out the drawing. And by blocking it out, you can see I just kind of move the pen around and I do not worry about detail. I'm more looking at what's the framework that I'm going to be putting together, because when I finish, I want to be able to at least have the framework for something I'm going to be drawing later. Don't worry, this is not a self-portrait, because I know I have been often called a blockhead when I was doing something silly, but this is not why I'm drawing myself as a round head. But that's about as much detail as I'll put together. I'll put something, just really simple shapes is what I call it. And then I'll come back with one of my drawing tools. So maybe it's just these two that I brought with me. And how are we doing so far? Is this probably not the way you thought it would go, this whole thing, or is it about what you expected from me, to be kind of random and just bouncing around all over the place? I tend to draw.
Yeah, we love random.
Oh, good.
We're enjoying
Yay.
it. Absolutely.
I am Mr. Like word association, so I just kind of keep going, and I was like, oh, that makes me think of this. I should probably show you guys that at the moment, So on location, I may be very sketchy like this, and sometimes it turns out like that. Sometimes it turns out like this. Because I usually bring just one pen with me for most of the time that I go out, I usually don't have a lot of gray markers with me or a watercolor brush or anything like that. So I depend heavily on cross-hatching. So you'll see examples of that right here. Maybe all of my tools are keep rolling downhill like this because I have a tilted art table right now. So probably not the smartest thing for a video presentation, but it worked well for me. So I thought I'll give it a shot anyway, see what happens. I love just sort of making myself look like a goofball. So now that I've showed you a quick little tutorial, and I'll get more into this as we get into our sketch. Some drawings that I did from our friend's condo looking over the Atlantic Ocean at Ormond Beach. Any of you who have been to St. Augustine probably will recognize this building here.
Yes.
It certainly has the kind of architecture that sucked me in like a vacuum. I said, oh my goodness, that has so much detail. I don't even know how I'm going to draw it, but I gotta draw some of it. So this was a lot of fun. Whenever I have to admit something to you, whenever I come to Florida, I have to find a manatee. I have to. It's just one of those weird, to me, it's like the Loch Ness Monster, you know, because my very first trip to Florida, we went to Sanibel Island. And every time we asked somebody, you know, do we go to Ding Darling? Do we go here? Do we go to the plantation at Captiva? Where do we go? You know, and everybody says, oh yeah, you go up here to where the cooling towers are at the nuclear place. They're always there because they like the warm water. Or you go over here to this marina. They're always sticking their nose up at this marina, you know. And every time we went there, it was no show, no manatees or anything like that. So that first trip that I did to Sanibel, Captiva, we finally saw it on our last day, and it was super hot and humid. And we were sitting on the pier at the marina, the plantation, South Seas Plantation, I think it's called. And we went there because somebody told us, oh yeah, go to the marina. They're always there by the boats. I go, well, that's funny because isn't it the boats that is like the biggest destroyer of manatees? Anyways, I thought that was ironic to say the least. But this squirrel here was when we went to a place called the Blue Spring State Park, and that was the first time I ever saw hundreds of manatees, and they're all just sitting around like sunbathers in Mexico during spring break. I mean, they didn't move, they didn't, you know, they were very boring to look at, but I found it the highlight of my trip. Did I draw them? Let me see. This is by the way just the cloud pattern. It's not a hurricane. But it was looking out the balcony at Ormond Beach. I'll get to this in just a second. This is tilapias that were in the water, and I was sketching them because I found them also very interesting. I love to fish, but I also love to just observe fish. Oh, here they are. Now, is this the view that I got while I was at Blue Springs? Probably not, but this was maybe when I went to one of the zoos and I was able to see the manatees, you know, right here at the water level. So I just thought there's so much fun. But anyways, let's get back to this here. To me, this is representative of urban sketch. When you see a scene that makes you chuckle or go, huh, I never thought of that, or isn't that fascinating that that's happening right in front of my eyes right now, and it probably won't happen again the rest of my life. This was one of those times where it probably will happen a lot, but it hasn't happened to me. We were with my friends and we were trying to get back to Daytona. And we have one bridge that takes us from Ormond Beach all the way over the causeway, and then it brings you back over to Daytona. And they happen to be doing construction, which is why this sign is there. But at the same time, they're also merging this lane here. So I saw this and I thought, this is what I would call the squeeze play, where everybody pretty much had, 3 lanes of traffic all had to become 1 lane of traffic, and they all had their brake lights on. And out of all this is this dog just enjoying the ride. And that made me laugh so hard. I said, and I'm sitting in the back seat since I'm not driving. I'm like, okay, I'm pulling out my sketchbook and I'm just drawing this, And if you are into drawing cars and you don't want to have to worry about how to draw cars accurately, this is one of the best views you can do, is to have a whole bunch of side views or a whole bunch of end views of the car and just do little pieces of it all the way up. And then it doesn't matter what you did. This pickup truck, I could get somewhat close. And then after that, it's just pieces of cars. That's my trick for when you need to draw cars and you're not a big fan of drawing cars. Parking lots and things like that. Let's see, what else do I got for you? I think that's probably it for that book. I have this weird relationship with sketchbooks. I'll sketch every page of it, or I'll sketch it and then I'll put some notes into it as well. And then I will get to the last 20 pages and I won't do it anymore. I suppose it's like having pens run out on me. I don't want to run out of sketchbook pages or something like that. So I have all these sketchbooks that have the last 20 pages that are blank because I haven't figured out how to finish them off yet. Also, when we were at Ormond Beach, we went down to Port Orange, and there's this little deli that we ate at, which looks right over this pier here. And I thought it was so much fun because I'm in the sun, first of all, and then I get to just be by the water, and I just got to watch all these boats that are sitting in the harbor and the seagulls that are peppering all of these piers all the way through, seagulls and pelicans. I had a lot of fun with that. When we go to St. Augustine, my wife and our friends, they love to go shopping, and they love to go shopping in all these stores that I probably have less interest in than they do. So I have a lot of time, and all I can say is wherever you go, always bring a sketchbook, because you never know when you're going to be forced to wait. It could be at the doctor's office, it could be at the DMV, it could be, just waiting in traffic or on a train or waiting for a plane. There are so many things to sketch if you look for them. Having what I call a beginner's mindset, some people call it a childlike mindset, is the best thing to have, because you want to be able to be curious about the world. When you get to the point where you start saying, oh yeah, I've seen this all before, and you start ignoring things, that's when you miss some of the things that you take for granted. Neon signs I love these hanging signs that are off of buildings. This was St. Augustine. Some of you who have been there probably know this area really well. Down by Ormond Beach, there was this hotel, and it has this big Viking ship entrance. I don't know why, but it's certainly pretty cool. I think it might have been a Motel 6 or something like that. And I thought, this is way too elaborate for a Motel 6. I don't know why they had such an elaborate entrance. Best Western had this big Easter Island head on it, which I thought was just hilarious. And so I had to sketch that as well. And some of you who are familiar with urban sketching also know that the hashtag 100 people, 100 sketches is a big thing every year. This was my starting out with one of those challenges. So you find out how many instances you can draw people. And then you start going, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. I got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And you start like keeping track of how many little people you've drawn, whether they're a lot of people or whether they're discernible people or not. Like this one here, I got silhouettes. I'm counting all those, right? Because I want to get to 100 as quickly as possible. Standing in line at a subway, you could you could certainly see a lot of people, and also you get a behind the scenes view of what it's like while they're making their sandwiches. Excuse me, sandwich artists are making your sandwich. Waiting for the barber, you get a little bit of time where you can catch all these moments, and this is the best group of people to sketch, the ones that are preoccupied with something, whether it's their electronic device, their laptop, or their newspaper. Oh, how many people do you think I got here? Is that a question? Oh, okay. All right. So obviously I used to take the train, so I sketched a lot of people on the trains, and you can see from my sketches that the level of detail that I put in varies depending on how much time that I have to draw, and also the level of quality. Sometimes I will use the sketches as a way to retaliate against somebody. Like this guy here, look at it, he's got his feet up. This is a behavior that you see on public transportation where somebody is communicating the message, I don't want to be near other people. So what he does is, this is another seat right here. He puts feet up on that seat, or he puts his luggage or his bags on that other seat and says to everybody, this is my space, don't come near here. I find that behavior deplorable, but humorous at the same time. So my way of retaliating is to sketch him. I said, okay, dude, I got you. I'm going to now share this with all of Jacksonville that you were being selfish, you know, and there's that kind of behavior on the trains. Lots of different, you can see different types of sketch quality. Sometimes I have markers, sometimes not. And if I don't, I start looking for funny hair or interesting clothes or something that's a little bit more interesting than just a bunch of people on their laptop computers or on their personal cell phones. This is all cross hatching, and this is a combination of markers and some pen and ink. Peaceful moments like this, I just love. I just love those moments where it's like, okay, I don't put in a whole lot of detail. I don't fill this page up with detail. I focus in. Jamie, I think this was part of your presentation the other night too, where you talked about composition. When I talk about composition, I always think of what is my eye going to, and in this case, it was right here, this little area right in here. So all of this, as far as I'm concerned, this is your frosted lens. This is the part that fuzzes out when you take your photo. But in the case of drawing, you just stop drawing. You just stop showing that part of your sketch. And the gentleman that every day I could set my clock to him coming off the train and reading a little paperback novel. And he did that every single day, and he got on the train and he continued to read. He probably continued when he got into Chicago and walked to his work with that book, you know, probably narrowly bumping into people, but his peripheral served him well, and he was not able to, you know, run into people and, you know, have awkward accidents. But instead, he would continue reading this book that I've never seen anybody so riveted to a book the way he was on a daily basis. And so I decided, okay, I'm sketching this guy because it was so much fun to look at him. You could see, even though I wanted to have some background, these are leaves. This is how I draw trees and background foliage. That I'm not a big tree guy. I don't like to draw a lot of trees, but if I can do the little doodles, the little scribbles, I'm happy. More people on. This was my father-in-law who had passed away, so I did this as a gift to the family. And you're probably wondering, well, why did you do it in a sketchbook? It's how I work. This is I do my best thinking in a sketchbook. So I decided I would scan this and blow it up bigger so that we could frame it, but I still have the original. And then some information that I notes about my former father-in-law. More people, more trained people, probably the easiest kind of people that you can get. And check this line out. Okay, I'm drawing down here, and then I'm just like, okay, something, right? That could have been somebody's coat hanging over the side of the bed, the chair. It could have been the garbage can that was right there. I don't remember, but to me, you could tell by the way I did this that unimportant. This is superfluous information. What I was focused on is all these people in the vestibule who were getting ready to get off at the next stop. All right. Y'all still with me?
We are.
Okay, good. I try to move fast because I know that we're doing good. All right, so we're going to start drawing pretty soon, but I wanted to share with you one of the tips that I use for when I start a sketchbook. When you start a sketchbook too, probably one of the biggest intimidating factors is how do you start the sketchbook? And so the first thing I do is I write a lot of notes to myself, mostly because I'm teaching the class. So I'm always like, okay, how can I make my class more awesome for my students than what I've already shown them? You know, I'm always trying to like make it better, you know, so I'll spend a lot of time watching other people's how-to videos on how they can teach a certain subject. But some of you have already done this, I know, when you're testing out your different sketchbooks, but you'll do your test squares. My test square are a little different because I don't always test out watercolor. I test out markers and color pencil. And one thing leads to another. All of a sudden, it's little pen, let's go like that. Little pen drawings. And then all of a sudden, it's like, okay, pen drawing. Then I'm going to practice my cross hatching. Then I'm going to try out my gel pen over here. I'll move this over. My gel pen over here. And then I'm going to try some aqua brush and sharks, because I have a good friend in Florida who really likes sharks. And I just keep trying different things and to see how they behave. You hate to go on location and say, I'm going to draw this scene and I'm going to use this watercolor or this pencil. And then you find out it doesn't behave very nicely with that particular paper. So I always like to find out, is this going to bleed through? Is this going to ruin my other sketch on the next page? Is it going to, is the line going to get fuzzy on me? So this is a great way, but being the kind of visual person that I am, you could see all of a sudden these little squares made me think of something else, because I'm a word association kind of person, or a picture association kind of person. And so I will sit there and add little more effects. So now I get to practice my cross hatching, and all of a sudden I've got an octopus in the background who's connecting all of these squares together. Have anybody ever heard of a green herring before? Green herring is a fascinating, you've probably seen egrets and regular blue herrings. They're very tall, very long-legged birds, usually white or off-white or gray or something like that. In the pond behind my house, there's this little guy. He's about the size of a duck, and he has medium legs, but he definitely doesn't stand in the water like a blue heron. And he has this bluish green cast about his feathers, much like a mallard duck, but he'll fish from the side of the pond like this. And it's fascinating because he'll move very slowly, just like the larger herrings. And then all of a sudden, boom, he comes up with a frog, or he comes up with a little baby fish or something like that. And you're like, well, good for you, dude. You got it. So it's pond life is one of those things that I really like about summer, where I can catch wildlife in all different kinds of settings. I'm on my parents' lawn during the summer, and every so often I have to look out for these guys right here, because every so often, and the mower is kind of funny because it has a fan in it anyways with the blade. And so there's all kinds of leaves and grass that blows around when you push the mower. But every so often you see something move and you're like, I better pay attention to what that was. And 9 out of 10 times it's a little guy about this big. I'm measuring about 1.5 inches or 2 inches. Little toad. It's just like, whoop, 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 you know, scurrying to get away. And I'm like, oh, that's so fun. I love being able to discover moments like that. Here's another sample page where, have you ever spilled wine on your nice shirt and now all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is a stain. I'm never going to get it out ever, right? It's ruined. My shirt is ruined. That's what you usually say. I figured, okay, fine. If it's going to ruin my shirt, maybe I can purposely ruin my sketchbook with it. Let's see how that works. So I actually took a lot of the popular staining sauces and juices and drinks and tried to ruin my sketchbook. This is me ruining my sketchbook because I wanted to see could I use red wine, or could I use soy sauce, or could I use olive oil, all those things that ruin my shirt. And so it's kind of a fun experiment. It probably would have worked better had I used a white sketchbook instead of this tone paper. But I don't know if you could see this, but there's actually a stain through from the oil because I used olive oil on this one right here. So that's as much damage as it was going to cause me. Sketching from life. Yes. Oh, was that a question?
Was that your dog?
This is, oh no, this is my my niece's dog. Her name was Pepper, and she's no longer with us. But at the time, I did this as a tribute to my niece because she did a sketch of my first dog, which was a Jack Russell Terrier. She did a sketch of Tucker for me because she really missed our dog. And so I said, when Pepper passed away, I was going to return the favor and do a sketch of Pepper. And of course, she was blown away. And it took her a long time to get over that. But she now has another black lab. So this is not my dog. But now, since you asked, this is my dog. This is my dog right here. And my dog, his name is Nero. And when we first got Nero, everybody.
My dog. Can you see?
Huh?
Can you see my dog?
Let me see. I gotta.
I'm sorry, but he has to come up and visit every meeting.
What is he, a boxer?
He is a boxer. He's a boxer mix. He's a rescue dog.
Yeah.
He's a funny guy. Sorry about that.
No, thank you for sharing. I'm addicted to animals, as you can see. You know, from loving manatees to loving dogs. Okay, so when we would introduce Nero to our friends, the first thing they would say is, "Where's his violin?" And do you all remember, or are you all familiar with the Emperor of Rome who watched Rome burn and played a violin, I guess?
Yeah.
You know, we had no idea of this story. So everybody kept telling us this story, like, where's his violin? We're like, what are you talking about? You know? And so finally, we learned, looked it up and said, okay, now we get it. Haha, very funny, everybody, right? So then we a neighbor across the street who actually is from the old country, Italy, And he told us, you know, Nero in Italian means black. And we're like, oh, of course. So it's very simple how he was named. And this is one of the funniest poses I've ever seen him do. I call this frog dog because he splays out his back legs as he's laying down. And he's laying on top of his toy, which is a hard plastic chew toy, you know. But he's just such a character, and he's our third dog now, and he's got the most character of all of them. Anyways, continue on in my sketchbook. During COVID, the Wheaton in the town of Wheaton, where I live close to and I teach my classes, they would have these food tents set up because, as you may recall, restaurants were not allowed to have, or businesses were not allowed to have anybody inside of the building. So restaurants, the only way they could survive COVID was to offer outdoor seating. And when it was a little bit cold in the spring, or if it was a little cold in the fall, or if it rained a lot, this is how the restaurants could get capacity. They could have a lot of people outside, and then they could still cook the food inside and run it outside to these tents. When it was a little chilly, the city hired or rented a bunch of these heaters. This is a heater unit that, as you can see, goes right down into here, and it just blows hot air into that tent. So it was, I thought it was just one of those cool discoveries, one of those cool workarounds that happened because of COVID. Another one that was really cool was people missed being able to go out to the movies, you know, the movie theaters and see movies. And of course, everybody's familiar with, oh, Netflix got really popular during that time, or streaming services got really popular. But then when you got to a point, everybody needed to get out of the house because they were tired of being inside the house, especially up north here where it was too cold to go out. So movie theaters were a big thing. That were the drive-in theaters. Let me see if I've got. I know I've got. This is the way to look at a sketchbook, right? Just flip through it like at that speed. Just like, okay, I got it. I'll go through this in just a second. Yeah, apparently I'm not going to have it readily available. This is the kind of haphazardness that you get from live TV. I'll show you it if I come across it. This is another COVID moment, is having an outdoor flea market and having everybody have to wear masks. They all had to walk in a certain direction, right? There was only a one-way street that they could walk in, and everybody had masks on. And this was in let's see, just 2 months after the stay-at-home order went into effect here in Illinois. So everybody was like, okay, cool. We can still at least go outside, and we could still do our shopping and get out of the house. So I found this fascinating, to be able to sit off to the side and watch these people shop at this flea market. So that was kind of a fun thing to do. More pond life. In Illinois, maybe down by you, the little libraries are very popular. Little libraries are this peculiar thing where everybody puts up these custom mailboxes outside of their yard, close to the sidewalk. So as people come by, it's populated with books that they can read, or they can leave books there, or they can take books from it. And so one day I decided to get a wild hair and decide to design my own. And so these are a lot of my designs. Oh, there's my barking dog right now. So this was one of those rare moments where I had to go find something to sketch, and nobody was getting together for COVID, but you could be outside. So the power lines right behind my house made a wonderful topic, a wonderful subject matter. And this is another cool way to do trees, especially if they're way off in the distance. You don't have to put a lot of leaf detail or any kind of shading into it. I just took a aqua brush that was tinted with drawing ink, and I just sort of moved it around in the background here in order to create this effect. In the foreground here, I used a green Bic pen and highlighter green markers on top of my pen and ink or below my pen and ink. And so the color palette on this is probably 3 colors: gray, green, and the black line work. And yet it's a very effective. Sometimes when you limit your palette, it can be very effective. T-shirt designs. I was sometimes the things that I do are not necessarily urban sketches, but they're still going in my sketchbook. A fisheye lens of a massive pickup truck that I was sitting next to on the curb while I was waiting for my train home. On nice days, you could do stuff like this, and that truck wasn't going anywhere for a while. So I decided, where I'm sitting, I got this nice big headlight right in my face, and it just to be a fisheye type of sketch. Not an urban sketch, but you can see that the old days of being able to draw your hand and turn it into a Thanksgiving turkey, I kind of took that one step further, and this craziness happened. The place that I do my day job has one of these forklifts, and this is, now I'm going to introduce you to some of my favorite things to sketch. This is one of them called, I call them urban uglies. These are the kind of things that you will see from time to time, or you'll see in your everyday life that you probably don't notice normally. You probably ignore them, or you just think they're kind of, nobody looks at that kind of stuff, right? And so this was one of those things. It's a very functional piece of equipment at the office. As we move paper around, I work at a printer, so we move paper around all over the place, and this is very necessary piece of equipment. And yet, who draws forklifts? Well, I raised my hand. Yeah, that's me. So I look for stuff to draw like that. Oh, there's my dogs. This is my, like at the end of Star Wars where they show Anakin Skywalker, Yoda, and Ben Kenobi. This is my trilogy right here. This is Nero, and then my first dog, which is a Jack Russell. This is Tucker, and then Miles, who was that in-between dog. He was a Beagle Rat Terrier, or what they called a brat. So he's about a little bit bigger than a Chihuahua, but he's not quite as big as a Jack Russell. And this guy is a big version of a Jack Russell, or what we call a mini lab. So I'm starting to do more and more of sketches of my dog, because I realized the first 2, I didn't do very many sketches of him at all. Graphic recording. Occasionally I dip back into this. This is my graphic recording of what happened during the COVID year. It's a mess to read right now, certainly on the screen, but it was my memory piece, so that I could look back and say, remember that time? So then when my grandchildren are like, Grandpa, tell us about that time where you guys couldn't go anywhere for months on end, I'll just pull this out. And I said, can you read? This is another COVID find. This was a series of dead trees that were in that pond area that's behind my house. This is the pond back in here. And all of this is a bunch of tree branches that some teenagers in our area had put together in order to create a little fort. This is the entrance to that fort right here. And all of this was, they just piled all these dead branches and made this wonderful little bird's nest looking place. I thought it was so cool that I started the sketch in the freezing cold. This is all snow on the ground, and that's an icy lake right there. And then I went finish the sketch in the warmth of my studio. But I loved all this texture. It just drove me insane to be able to draw all these branches and things like that. But it was a lot of fun to do, and I look for this. Probably is another urban ugly as well. Come to Chicago during St. Patrick's, and you're going to see this. You're going to see a boat. Get this, a boat dropping orange liquid that turns the river green. It's the craziest thing, and it's done every year by a plumbers union, and it's one of the things. It turns into this bright chartreuse green for St. Patty's Day, and it's an event that everybody looks forward to every year in the Chicago River. This is kind of my setup right now. I realize in setting up for today, I set up kind of like a DJ. I have to have all my materials within arm's reach, and it's behind me, it's in front of me, it's all over the place. Little scenes like this are wonderful, especially when you're shopping and your wife is going off finding different flowers, and I'm just going to stand there with the shopping cart. And thankfully, if you have a little sketchbook, and it doesn't have to be a large, sketchbook. It can be a little guy like this, just a hand's pocketbook size. Those are certainly good enough for this kind of thing, especially if you want to be stealth about it. This was I was teaching my classmates how to draw a horse using simple shapes. You got a big oval here or a jelly bean here, and I got a circle for all the major joints and muscle groups. And one thing that a lot of my students were not aware of is the fact that the back legs of a horse hinge in a different way than the front legs do. And so once you study horses, and I did by default because my older sister was really good at drawing animals, especially horses. So I'd always look to her to show me how to draw cats and dogs and birds, and especially horses, because I think horses are magnificent. Mary Jo Ernst from the Urban Sketchers West Michigan group always finds these wonderful old vintage cars, and she sends me the photos and says, "Wes, can you draw this?" And I'm like, can I draw this? Come on, is that the silliest question ever? But I love the fact that she's out there looking for cars for me to draw. So she'll draw this thing. She sent me this one here, and she was at an event, and she says, "I saw this car and it made me think of you." That is the coolest moment when I don't think that I'm all that memorable as far as like a hobby that everybody thinks of when they're going about their day and they see something that makes them think of me. I think that's really cool when that does happen. And cars apparently are my thing. So, and I'm happy to oblige and be able to sketch with them. More urban uglies. This is done with warm markers, pen and ink. This was done during one of my classes. We found ourselves an alley. This little passageway here is so thin that I challenged myself to see if I could actually fit through that, because it is so narrow. It's about a foot wide. And I don't know how there's steps there and why anybody would ever think to go through there, or at one point, maybe the buildings weren't built that close at some point. But it was just, I love little quirky details like this, and all these power lines that just kind of go every which way, usually telephone lines and things like that that are thinner. Wow, I could go for hours.
You have
I'm
more
sure you
cars?
more cars.
Yeah, just
I got cars.
cars.
Oh yeah, I got cars. All right.
Also, do you have a favorite journal sketching book, or your one or two your favorites? I haven't heard you mention names. You've had quite a few different journals.
there's a really good reason why I don't mention names. But
Okay,
I will go ahead and mention some names. One is Hanamule. Hanamule
okay.
is, these are Hanamules. These are called nostalgia, somewhere. I usually try and keep the tag with the book so that I can remember what the heck it's called. But this is one that I highly recommend. Hanamule toned watercolor. It's an A5. Sorry, I'm not doing a very good job of keeping it in front of the camera. I was gifted this book so that I could try it out. But if it comes to me going out to buy a sketchbook that I would really want to be part of, Hanamule is my favorite. I know that there's plenty of other sketchbooks that are out there, and I am not under any kind of commission from anybody, so that's one of the reasons why I don't talk about sketchbook, because I feel like I should promote my favorite book, but ultimately my favorite book is going to be a generic book. But I do a lot of, anytime you see this little rooster,
I have one too. I love it.
it's fantastic. I really like it. I like the size of this too. It's but I'll tell you, one of the things that I really like the most, I've shown this to you already. I'll come back to my cars in just a second. Sorry about that, Lisa.
That's okay.
My favorite is a sketchbook that I can lay flat like this and be able to hold my pen. So I like spiral notebooks just for that reason. I don't get the opportunity to draw across the entire width without running into this little fence here in the middle. That doesn't usually bother me because whenever I'm sketching, I usually fold it back like this anyways, and then I sketch. Did I tell you that there's sometimes where I like having unfinished sketches? It's like it's real easy when you are in the middle of having a lunch or something, and you're not sure if you want to start a new sketch. So you come to something that's unfinished, or maybe something that you gave up on. You come back to it later, and then you find, hey, I've got a new fresh eyes on this thing. I'm going to give it another shot and see how it goes. And then you can turn that sketch into a wonderful thing. Plus, it gives you something to do without having to think, what am I draw now? And you're looking at this blank page, just, doing like this with your finger going, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, So having a book like this that lays really flat is nice. There are other sketchbooks that lay flat that don't have this in the middle. This just happens to be the one that I like to use. And this is a very generic, I got this from work. It's a very generic sketchbook. It's full of just regular drawing paper. I do a lot of gluing pictures into it, as well as like this one here. This is glued into the page, whereas sometimes I'll draw right on the page. And when I do, you can see where it bleeds through. That's where you bring in a blotter card or a blotter sheet that you just put underneath every time you're going to do a drawing. Okay. Back to random.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. So yeah, so most of the time it's because I have all different kinds of sketchbooks and I don't even know what they're called. I really envy when I see artists like Liz Steele, who always has the exact same sketchbook, and for years she's written, the date on the spine. This is from August till December of 2017 or something like that. The only thing that I do with my sketchbooks is outside of the Hana mules, where I don't do anything to them. Most of the time with my sketchbooks, I always take and I glue a different picture on it or a different sketch on it. This was one where I found this out of a magazine. And once again, because I have a friend who really likes shark, Aaron Ellswick out of, I think he's Orlando, but his parents live South Florida. I find a fascination with sharks now as well, you know, and I love this kind of view. And I learned once that when the animators for Disney were working on Little Mermaid, they watched videos of sea lions in order to figure out what a mermaid would look like. I find stuff like that super interesting. And like, oh, that's so cool that they would think to, you know, watch sea lions in order to figure out how a mermaid moves. You know, you could watch sharks and do the same thing, I suppose, but for some reason they just watched hours and hours and hours of video of sea lions. So anyways, we're going back to cars. You got to keep me on task here. So we have cars that these were drawn during one of the sketch seminars. This is before we got started. A bunch of us just went out and did a bunch of these warm-up sketches. I generally like to work really fast, so my motion can be very like this. I can also start to slow it down a little bit, but you could see it once again, my love for trees and how I just like try to forget them as I move around. Sorry. And so I just kind of suggest it. That is not a tree at all, but it is a little yard decoration that we had. And all of a sudden it was a really hot day and I just started getting into like the frogs and the birds and everything like that. Okay, so now we get into cars. This was my Toyota Highlander. I had that for many, many years. I probably had it longer than most people have their cars when they're not a vintage car. I had this for about 15 years, but here's my commercial for Toyotas. They go forever. So when you're drawing cars, it's always nice to be able to, I always like to draw them at a 3/4 view because you get more view of it. You get more information, more story to tell. And I like adding annotations to my sketches as well. It just makes it a little bit more useful than just a sketch of the car. This is another one of those sketches that made me laugh when I saw it. You probably have seen workman vehicles where they just pile up all the paperwork in the dashboard like this. And so sometimes I looked at this and I go, that's funny how they do that. And I always see that with these, you know, these vans, pickup trucks or whatever. And so one day I just said, it's kind of like a front office. And so that's why I added this little thing right here, because that's where his office is. He drives around, you know. The funny thing is police officers, their car is their office as well. You know, they got the laptop and stuff, but you never see this in a police car. This is all the invoices that when you ask them, okay, are you going to send me a bill? And they're like, oh yeah, it's here somewhere. This is an Urban Ugly. This was our car. This was our car after an accident, and this is when we went to visit it at the wherever they tow cars after they've been in an accident. So I should be very sad about this, but at the same time, I looked at it as a golden opportunity to do this really interesting sketch, much like all those dead tree branches that I showed you before. This was so interesting to me because it was all just a mess. I was able to detach myself from the human element or the personal attachment that we have to this car, just so I could do this sketch. But it was pretty cool, and I don't all like weirded out when I see this now, but it was pretty intense at the time that it happened. But being able to do a sketch of it, I just kind of said, hey, it's a cool sketch at least, so let's see what I've got. I got my Highlander. I've got our other Highlander. This is also a Toyota Highlander. This was our Saab convertible, which we loved, but it was a terrible, terrible car in wintertime. It just spun and it slipped around all over the place. And I thought, this car is from Sweden. Why is it so terrible in the snow? I just thought that was ironic. But we loved it for the summertime because of this convertible top. And so I started to do this thing where I was like, okay, before we have to trade in or we start losing our favorite cars, I'm going to start drawing each of them. So here's, well, I guess I don't have a car book, but I have more urban uglies for you. This was an interesting alley where this drain pipe up here was dripping water, and because it was so cold, all of this is ice. This is an ice tree, if you will, that was created from the freezing temperatures. And I found this so interesting, this organic shape that was created by dripping water against all of this old vintage brick, and even this crack in the masonry right here, and then the random archway, that's right here, just like that's, I don't know, this isn't an alley, so I didn't understand all of what preceded this particular scene, but I found there's a lot of history there somehow. So I thought it was really cool just to be able to picture that kind of stuff.
Do you have a shortcut for all those bricks, or do you just go for it?
I do have a shortcut now. Most of the time I just go for it because this is part meditative to be able to sit there and draw all these brick patterns. Any of my students will tell you, Wes, that's craziness. Why do you spend so much time? And even Chris will say, that's way too much time on a sketch. So but if this is one of those things, do you ever have those tasks that you do that are kind of mindless, and you do them because it helps you think of other things that you have to put more thought to? This is what brick is to me. Brick is me thinking about, okay, all right, what am I going to do the rest of my week? How am I going to solve that problem with the project at work? So I'm sitting there going, I don't know, and you just sort of one brick after another, and you start to fill up the room or fill up the page, and it becomes therapeutic.
Is
so
it ink wash or alcohol? Marker.
This is marker.
Marker, okay.
Yeah, I'm a marker guy. So these are all gray markers, and some China marker is what I used for the white. China marker has the wonderful ability to be very opaque or translucent, depending on how much you build it up. It's really fun to have.
So Wes, what's the time you spend on your sketches? How much time do you normally spend?
I'm going to sound a little bit contradictory here. Bear with me. I get impatient if I spend more than an hour on a sketch. So I tend to move through the picture very quickly. But in a case like this, I'll move through it very quickly, block out all these pieces. And then I was like, okay, now I've got all that settled. I'm going to just take my time and work on the bricks. So then time becomes meaningless at that point. Somebody asked before, is there a shortcut to doing bricks? And here's the shortcut that I learned from talking with my architect buddies, because I always wanted to know, to do all these bricks. Is there a faster way to do it? I asked this very same question. And they said in architecture, you suggest material, you don't draw. So Chris, you're probably familiar with this. You don't draw every single paver on the sidewalk. You don't draw every single, on the terrace wall, you don't draw every single brick. But like here, you skipped a few. You do little sections. And let's see if I can find an even better example. Oh, that's cool. Another example is like not drawing every single lattice on this true link fence. You draw just pieces of it, like where the light catches it. Where I'm drawing in pen and ink and I don't draw it, that's where the highlight hits. Yeah, this you probably are all familiar. I seem to gravitate towards construction sites a lot. Even here, I kind of went overboard with the brick, but again, it's meditative to me, so I don't mind. But then I get down here to the snow, and I'm like, I don't have time for this, you know. And all of a sudden, I'm like scribbling snow real fast just to get through it. And then I'll do something quite the opposite again by doing all this cross hatching on a dark set of stairs at the Chicago Cultural Center. That's that big building that I showed you before, size of a football field. Okay, this is one of those things where, like, I normally don't draw trees, right? But I found this to be so interesting because it was on my walk to and from the train station every day. And this piece of tree fell from right here. It broke off and it fell. You could see it crush the fence. And part of me walks by it every day going, how come somebody doesn't come and chop this up and fix the fence? This was sketched probably, let's see, what was this? Urban Uglies. I tend to hide my signature in my sketches a lot. So I'm trying to see if I also wrote the year. Apparently I did not. But this is easily 5 years ago that I did this sketch. You walk by this scene today, it's still sitting there. It's still sitting there. And I still ask myself the question, why is that big hunk of wood still sitting there? And then one day I happened to be by this house and I saw this old man get out of a car and he got his cane out and he just hobbled towards the house. I go, well, that's why, because he doesn't have enough in him to be able to chop up this wood. But I'm like, well, what about all the neighbors? You know, I don't know. So I decided I wouldn't be a judging person, but I was curious as to why this scene is still the same today, 5 or 6 years later. But now it's got such a wonderful story that I just keep. This is what it looks like from the photo, because I wanted to show you that it would. I mean, number one, there's this cool moss that was built up on it, but all of the fact that one day this whole tree just cracked and blew up and everything was a mess, right? And the fact that it's still there now it just blows my mind, but it makes for an interesting story now. Sea Dog, which is one of the tour boats that you can take while you're in Chicago. See, I put a lot of notes in my sketchbooks too, so I'm never really sure what's going to come out of it. This was part of a explanation where I was trying to show people how I sketch people in public, especially if they're moving a lot. And it is really impossible to sketch people when they're all running for the train. But I thought it was funny because I was comfortably at work or on my way to work, so I didn't have to worry about rushing to catch the train like these people were. This is an underpass that goes underneath the train tracks so you can get to the other side. And they knew that the train was already at the station upstairs, and they were just coming down to go into this tunnel to get to the other side of, and hopefully get on the train before it departed from the station. And I'm a football fan as well, so I started to imagine that this was tryouts for a running back or something like that. So this is me trying to explain, but this is how I would explain how you capture. This was the initial sketch that you would do, just a quick gestural weight line type of sketches of the people, and then come back later and add all that detail. More cars, more flea markets. How are we doing on time? Can we start a sketch yet?
We should.
Okay, let's do that. I appreciate your patience with me. All right.
We're gonna see what you can do in 10 minutes.
Okay. Good. There's me at the symposium with my scooter. This is what it looks like. So I warned you that I might be talking too long, but it's all good, right?
Yes.
I'll show you how to do this. All right. So you all got your picture reference, right?
Yes.
This is a representative of Urban Uglies to me. So what I really wanted to do was to have you draw this. But then I realized I can't go anywhere to sketch an urban ugly with the Flintstone because I couldn't find it anywhere nearby. And if we're going to do an urban sketch, we have to be able to at least be able to photograph it from real life. So instead, I decided, okay, we're not going to do this. We're going to do this guy instead. And make sure that you guys can all see this. So whenever I talk about this, there's a quote from a book by Matthew Frederick. It's got this great little book here called 101 Things I Learned in Architecture School. And it's a cute little book. It would make an awesome sketchbook because it's a perfect size. But instead, he has like little one page things where he has a explanation and then he has a visual for it. I think one of these days I'm going to do a how-to book on urban sketching, and this is the style that I want to mimic. You know, quick little description or caption, and then a picture to go with it. Well, here's one that he says that I say all the time in my class. Draw the box it came in. Okay, so whenever I say draw the box, it means, like I showed you with that big fat pencil, draw the simple shapes first. And so when I do that, I'm going to look at this scene here and I'm going to create all of this out of boxes. When I tell my students that, they may be thinking, this is what I want them to do. Not literally boxes, but imagine that they are boxes. And I think, well, that's craziness. And they're like, Wes, yeah, we don't agree with what you're saying. But then I think about this and I go, you know, this isn't such a bad idea, because these aren't really Amazon boxes outside my front door. But if we take this shape here, and start to fill in the rolling pin that would be the front wheel of that steamroller. And I'll put this here so you guys can kind of see. Let me see how I can do this. Does that work for you? Can you see that a
Yeah.
little bit?
Mhm.
It's always nice to be able to see what is my reference as I'm going forward. All of a sudden, this pile of boxes is very workable for the scene that we're doing here. By now you're thinking, okay, Wes, that pile of boxes isn't as random as we thought it was. But it was based off of boxes off this shape here. By the way, do I have to tell everybody they can draw now? Or are they already drawing?
No, I'm not drawing.
There's a thing that I've heard said many times before, and I've also seen artists do this before. When you're out in your urban scene and you want to find out what your angle is, if you aren't already using Isabel Santos non-architect clock, then another way to figure out what your angle is to just move your pen or your pencil in this drawing in the air. Just kind of mimic the angle with your hand above the page or above the scene as you're looking out at it, and just kind of get your arm to start getting muscle memory of that angle. Because when you go like this, you can start to feel the angle that's going to happen. And then you can do that same thing when you actually hit the page. All right. So what I usually like to do is I'll do a rough sketch like this. Usually I don't draw my boxes on the page, but you can. And if I did, I like to use gray pencil, graphite pencil, or a blue pencil. I think I've been attracted to the way that animators and cartoonists will work up their sketches beforehand using the blue pencil, because many times what they'll do is they'll leave that pencil on and then they'll do the inking all over the top of it. I don't even know how this works. Is there questions that came in through the chat or anything like that that I can answer?
I think at this point, we're all just sketching along furiously.
You're worried about the 10 minutes left?
Wes, I had a question.
Yeah.
What is your, I've been looking for a good set of grayscale markers. And every time I order a set, I get them and some are blue and some are light. And it's like, it's never good. I mean, I want a regular gradated, the same warm or the same cool. What brand do you use?
I like Copic and I like Prismacolor. Those are the two markers. You see me shy away from mentioning any brand names for sketchbooks, but when it comes to markers, the ones that I've grown up on have been, let's see. Let's see, I have Prismacolor, which I use a lot of. And they come in, you can come in and get them as warm grays or as cold grays or cool grays. Here's the Copic, for example. And most markers come with a chisel tip like this.
Mhm.
Or, and then on the other end, you get a finer point so you can do some detail work. So most markers will come in that kind of two tip variation. Then other times you can get a marker, trying to find one here. Here I am being so prepared, and then you stump me with that question. No, I love questions. You can have brush tip like this, where it's a fatter brush tip on one side, and then it's still the narrow, tiny point on the other side. But Prismacolor has always been very good to me, and Copic. I recently got some Copic markers that I really liked that are also very good. This is a point where we asked, so what are you doing this weekend? Always awkward silence is never my friend, but at least when I'm trying to draw, because I'm always thinking I have to fill in the dead air. But maybe I'm being too distracting that way too.
Yeah, we got a great weekend planned, Wes.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I'm so jealous. No, you should have a good time. When does everybody come into town for that?
Well, we're hoping Friday. Merrick, if you're still on, we hope the storm blows through by then.
It better be that, Chris.
I'm going to be tracking you. You might get here pretty quick. I don't know.
Yeah. Merrick's like, this is not what I signed up for.
Well, I can't remember if it was Chris or myself who suggested the date, but I think I should blame it on him, you know. It's
Yeah.
like, but at least it seems that we are avoiding most of the rain. And for what I looked, it seems that, you know, by Friday night, that the problem should be over.
Yeah, typically around here, when there's a storm, it's the most beautiful weather for days after.
Oh,
Crisp,
yeah.
cool. Yeah, it's usually like amazing afterwards.
Yeah,
Oh,
we got to just get him here.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, all the flights.
Yeah,
Yeah,
bring
we
some
got-
Dramamine on Friday there, Merrick.
Well, I don't know. We'll see, because we also have a landing in Charlotte, right? First, so it's 2 times we have to, you know, 2 planes we have to get on. Hopefully, we'll be fine. You know.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You'll know if something happens, Chris. No worries.
I'll be tracking you, man.
Okay.
Hopefully you won't get that scene like I sketched, you know, where somebody goes, there's going to be a 15-minute delay, and it turns into like a half hour or hour delay.
Well, as long as we get there, it's all fine, right? It just and you know, I understand that we may have to be doing a bit more than usual of airport sketching and things like that. So yeah, it's all right.
I live for that. You know, I often will sketch people who have who've just been told that they can't get on a flight because they're all booked up, and the body language that you see when they've been told this bad news is just, I sound like a terrible person, but it's just so wonderful.
He's like, hold that pose.
Yeah, that's right. That S-curve shape of yours as you're sitting at the boarding gate is just so wonderful. Hold it right there. I think sometimes I get into trouble too, where I'm so enjoying being able to just sit down and sketch at the airport that I have to pay attention in case they do that dreadful, we've changed gates on you, you know? And I have to make sure I pay attention to those announcements, because at some point, all those announcements start to blend into each other, and it's, you know, you stop paying attention to it.
Been there.
I'm often asked if I use a straight edge when I'm urban sketching, and the answer is, yeah, I do bring a straight edge, because I tend to draw straight edges to a point as far as my wrist will take me, and then after that, I was like, if it goes too much longer, I kind of want to keep it straighter, so I will pull out a 6-inch ruler or something like that. I'm not doing it in this particular case because I want to show off that I can actually sketch. So I don't, you know, but certainly there are times where I've had people who have used their iPads, and they go, Wes, check this out. I can draw a perfectly straight line because it'll fix it for me. I'm like, oh yeah, that's cheating.
That's how I got straight A's in college. I use a straight edge.
Your letter forms are perfect, Chris.
But bump.
Yeah,
It's getting late.
yeah.
That's
We're not
how
so
I
sure
got
about these
straight.
letter O's.
Yeah, right. Hey, I've got one of those red or those rulers that bends straight or bends in a curve.
Oh, yeah. They smell real nice, don't they?
Oh, I've never sniffed mine. Now I'm going to have to.
Well, if you get them new, it's all that plastic smell.
Oh yeah.
And, yeah, and it smells like feet.
Oh. Yeah, that's
Nice.
nice. That's a nice smell when I think of it.
Yeah. Aren't you glad you invited me here today? I could bring in that kind of hillbilly sensitivity.
Right, I'm at the point where I've committed to lines, but they're not matching up. I just make up my own new ones to go in their place.
That's the best way. This is called interpretive sketching.
Yeah.
Is it Jamie who likes to put a quote in the beginning of each book?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So I had a few quotes that came across as I was getting ready for today. And I thought if you haven't heard of them, that you might enjoy them. So one is Twyla Tharp. I don't know if you've used her quote before, but
I'm writing it down.
Art is the only way to run away without leaving home.
Love it. That's what I do.
And one of my friends here in Chicago had used a quote that I had never heard of before, and I was kind of I got caught up in trying to figure out how to translate it. And the quote goes, "Think like a turtle, but paint like a rabbit."
Oh, that's cool.
Oh,
Isn't that
well,
cool? It makes you pay attention to pre-gaming it in your head, plan out what you're going to do with your sketch, but then just let it fly when you actually come to sketch.
yeah, man, love it.
I do this little rant every so, not a rant, but I do this little preachy thing where I tell my students something that I call practice safe sketch, which sounds kind of funny, but what I'm talking about is something that I actually saw similar type of sentiment in Mike Dyker-Burrow's book. And he talks about how you want to be safe when you're outside sketching in public, because you have all your valuables in your backpack or your handbag or your purse or something like that, but you're in public, so you want to make sure that you keep all that stuff out of harm's way, where people could snatch it or grab it without you knowing it. And so there, it has to do with listening to music or not listening to music when you're out sketching, because you want to be in the moment, you want to be present in what's happening around you. And there's some so you can see how it can get really preachy like that, but I always worry about everybody's safety when it comes to sketching out in public. And so I always, whenever I see sketchers that have their backpack or their handbag behind them, I always make sure they get it up underneath their legs, up underneath their stool, so that they don't have any chance that could be taken from them, it's just, I don't know, it's just sort of a thing that I worry about. And plus there's so many wonderful sounds that you get just from the ambiance of being out in public. You know, like I'm often wrestling with trying to speak over buses and trains and fire trucks. It's a wonderful, wonderful dance that we do when we're urban sketching.
Yeah, that's right. I never listen to music. That's like my rule. When I'm sketching, I don't even bring my devices to,
Yeah.
or walking, even for safety reasons. I want to be able to listen to hear like a bicycle or a car.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've noticed now, like I'll be walking my dog, and there will be, it's usually a young person who is riding a bike, and they come up right behind you, and they don't say, "Hey, I'm behind you," or "on your left," or something like that. They'll just like whiz right by you, and you're like, it startles you.
All right, people, it's 1/4. Let's take a look at how far we got, because it is getting late.
I'm sorry about that.
No, no, don't be sorry. We enjoyed all your sketchbooks and everything. You know, your whole process is fascinating.
It was very fun to see all that.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, let's take a look at some sketchbooks, because now that I got the structure down, so I'm just filling in all the details. All right, how we doing? Oh, look at that. That's great.
I didn't get very far. I can't even see.
Yeah, you got about as far as I did. Very nice though. You got a great start.
Nice.
Please, everyone, hold your sketches. So I'm going to take a picture. Okay. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Thank
Nice.
you.
Yay.
All right. Wonderful. Does anyone have any questions for Wes? Come on, let's get some questions. There was so much, so many things. You showed us so many things, and it went so fast. It was really hard to get a question into you.
Yeah.
I am curious about how you said you put a watermark on your Chicago watermark on each page, and I didn't know how you did that.
The magic of photocopying.
Yeah,
I
but
did,
you're in a sketchbook. How did you do that?
well, this was a sketchbook that I had a binding equipment, so I was able to put this kind of binding on it through something that we had at the office. You can also do that if you go to like Staples or something like that. You can photocopy a bunch of pages with your little watermark, and then be able to then have them bind it if you want, you know.
Okay.
I just had the ability to be able to bind it at work because we had one of those spiral wire roll bindings. So there's different ways you can bind a book, but the key is to make photocopies with the watermark on it first and then bind it.
That's cool.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it was a stamp or something.
You could do it that way as well. That's something we did a lot at the symposium. We had a stamp, and we just kept stamping all of our pages, and then that's also a good way to do it.
Okay. We have another question from Princess.
I had a question about you, when you have the text, are you writing that later, or are you writing that on the spot? Because you so neat. How are you doing that? So I was so neat and designed properly. I mean, are you doing it in pencil? I mean, what's going on there?
I write it usually on the spot, because if I don't, then I might forget the spelling of something important, especially if I'm standing in front of something that has a marquee or a plaque, and I want to get the spelling right. Other things where it doesn't require the correct spelling, you know, it's just me writing notes to myself. I might do those later after I get back home or in a more comfortable setting. So I guess it kind of varies. It depends on how important it is for me to write down what I'm saying. But sometimes I will use a ruler, you know, or, you know, just kind of scribe out some lines real fast so I can write on a line. And other times I love the wonkiness of being able to just draw, write my words in kind of a crazy, more random fashion. So whatever mood works for you, you know, like when I did, when I did this one here, I just sort of started writing with my hand. So it's the thing about sketchbooks is it's really for you. So you don't have to worry about it being a coffee table book. You don't have to worry about it being camera ready. It's just however you want to write it. If you write it in pencil, if you write it in pen, that's completely up to you. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Wes, I'd like to say that I really love your narrative with your sketches. It's really brings it all together and makes it a complete thought.
Well, thank you, Patrick.
Really nice.
I know that we didn't delve into cars as much as you and I would like, but you know, maybe I'll get to that in part 2.
There you go.
Yeah, next time we just have me stop showing books and just start sketching. You know, we'll have more time.
Is there any other question?
Do you know how to change the frame so that it shows the picture? I think I have also, but not picture.
I didn't understand.
What did she say? What did you say, Bonnie?
I can't get the picture to come on my iPad. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Well, we know you're there.
Okay, thank you. I enjoyed it.
That's what really matters.
All right. Wes, there was so much information, and the amount of, I don't know how your sketches are so perfect, one after another after another. Every page you turned, it was like there was this whole big story going on. It was just so interesting to me. How can you come up with a perfect sketch after a perfect sketch? And I love how you grayscaled everything. That's why I asked you about that, because I have bought like 3 or 4 different grayscale markers and they've all been crap. So I said, I've just got to find out what the heck his grayscale markers are, because I'm tired of this, you know?
Yeah, so the markers that I told you about,
Yep.
I'm a big fan of Copic and Prismacolor.
I'll get
The other thing that I've been doing recently is to take an aqua brush and just dilute drawing ink in it. And then you've got a 50% gray or a 20% gray or 70% gray, depending on how much you dilute the drawing ink. And so I carry that with me, and that's just kind of my go-to as a just a basic gray, just so I have something in between the page white and the grays, or page white and the black ink. So I've got a medium color in the middle there, and it's real portable. This isn't it, but it's about this size. It could be a very small brush that you keep with you, and you just take that top off and you start putting in drops of drawing ink into it until you get to the type of gray that you would be happy with.
Cool, cool,
Kind of trial and error.
fantastic.
Wesley, I want to thank you. I really enjoyed the comments. And if there was one statement I had to walk away with that I wrote down about halfway through, every drawing holds a story. Or is it every story has a sketch?
I like that. Yeah, I mean, welcome to our book club. So
Yeah.
it's definitely the chase, right? We love to find out what the story is beyond just a sketch. A lot of times people will say, "Hey, Wes, can you draw this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I could draw this, but I'm now at the point where I like drawing things that have a meaning, they have a story, and that's really what I gravitate to." And I think for any of us, you'll see that comes through in your drawing too, is to know that you've got a story that goes with it. It was yeah. Oh, here's my one drawing. This drawing here is a car in front of a restaurant in Elgin or Evanston, Illinois. We were doing this on an urban sketching group, and I sketched this car. It's a 1952 Triumph TR3. You can tell I'm a car guy. And I started drawing it, and before I was done with the drawing, two women came out of the restaurant and they sat down in the car and they started to leave. And I'm like, "Oh no, they're gonna leave. I'm not done with the drawing." So out of a panic, I just said, "Thank you." And they looked at me and they go, "Thank you. Thank you for what?" I said, "Thank you for letting me draw your car." And they go, "You drew our car?" I said, yeah, I did. And I showed them that sketch. And then they came over and they said, "That's beautiful." And they said, "This is the first time we've had this car out since my dad died." And I go, "Oh, this was your dad's car?" And she goes, "Yeah, we just had the funeral last weekend, and we brought he wheeled this car to me, so we brought the car home in a rental truck, and this is the first day we had it out." But she goes, "That is so nice that you did this drawing." And I said, "Well, you can have it." And so oftentimes that's what we'll do as urban sketchers. If it really touches somebody enough, then we'll go ahead and just say, "Hey, you know what? Go ahead and have it. Go ahead and keep it. I'll take a snapshot of it, or I won't. And then I want you to be happy." So we could touch people's lives a lot like, is it Elise in your group who draws people and then she has the relationship going?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that's why you do some things, is to be able to have conversations with people, and then it's just so wonderful. So welcome to my sketchbook, or welcome to my book club.
So you're saying being an urban sketcher is like never knowing a stranger?
Yeah, well, and it's funny because there are people on the train that I sketched repeatedly, but I didn't realize I was sketching them repeatedly until I started looking back at my sketches, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I kept drawing the same woman over and over again." And it wasn't I was attracted to her, but I was attracted to the pose that she had, or the way she dressed, or something like that, And I said, I look like some kind of a stalker, because I kept drawing the same person. But that's just how it happens sometimes. And I've never met the person, but you have this weird energy that you think if they ever said hi to you, that you would think that you've known them for a long time, but they don't know you. And it's because I've kind of built a relationship through the sketching, just by observation and by putting it down and studying some of the details.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much. We are really going to take a lot from everything that you've said and showed us today. And we want to thank you for taking the time to give us so much information and so much. I have no words today. I'm telling you, I've just really enjoyed this so much. Hannah, do you have anything?
No, I'm also very thankful for your time, Wes, and your participation in our group. And I think this is the last meeting of the year, because we have until just 11 meetings per year. So thank you very much. We are closing in a very good, excellent speaker. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You're all so very welcome, and I thank you for inviting me. I think I'm energized by what your group is doing, all the activities that you do for your members to try and get them out sketching. And I'm a little jealous because you have nicer weather than we do right now. But we'll fix that sometime.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we're
thank
not
you
at the
again for
moment.
having me.
Yeah. Not at the moment. Our weather's nicer than yours, but anyway, that'll only last a day or two. But I wanted to also express my thanks as well, Wes. Awesome stuff, great stuff, and best of luck to you. We will continue to enjoy following you, and you definitely kicked off a great few days for us. We're gonna have a great weekend, and you absolutely inspired us to greet Merrick and Isabel for this weekend as well. So,
well, enjoy your weekend with the workshops. I look forward to seeing the results of that through some of the posts. So thank you very much. And I will see you on the interwebs.
For sure.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Right.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.